The Raptors lose another close game, this time to Wembanyama and the Spurs. Let's go to the film room.
The only thing that's originally filmed is that and I've studied older films and tried to figure out how I got that impression. I always get amazed when I'm in the cutting room.
The unique thing about film is an art form
exactly.
is the editing.
Yeah.
So, folks, the Raptors were up 12 points to start the fourth quarter, and that lead quickly evaporated. In almost like 3 minutes, that lead was completely gone. And there were a few different things that led to that. Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram were not in the game. Wembanyama was in the game at that point, and that was when the Spurs caught up, took advantage, and then the rest is history. Thought the Raptors had a lot of miscues to start the fourth quarter, especially defensively, and a lot of it was just miscommunication, like not talking, not communicating what the coverage is or what they're going to do on any specific screen. So as you see here, Wembanyama is going to set a screen for Devin Vassell to cut to the basket, right? Now, this is communication that needs to be kind of talked about between RJ Barrett and CMB. Are we switching this action? Are we not switching this action? Are we fighting through? This is something that needs to be discussed, or at the very least, you need to call out the coverage. And I think here, RJ gets stuck around the screen. Vassell gets the wide open dunk. This was an awesome offensive rebound by Dylan Harper here. Just rises up over Jacoby Walter. Spurs defense. This was just an awesome offensive rebound. Raptors had a few of these moments where second chance opportunities absolutely killed them in that fourth quarter. Dylan Harper corrals this rebound, scrambling defense. Steph Castle knocks down the three. And so no Scotty Barnes on the floor right now. You're forcing Mamu to pick up Wembanyama here with CMB picking up Dylan Harper in the corner, right? So bad situation for Mamu to be put in, as Wemby sets the screen, lays out Shed, and now it's a pick and roll situation where Mamu is already behind the play, and that is an easy alley-oop for Wemby for the finish. This possession shows why communication was really lacking, especially in the fourth quarter on defense. And so the Spurs are running a dribble handoff between Devin Vassell and Steph Castle, right? And they do this for a couple different reasons. Steph Castle, elite at getting to the basket. Devin Vassell, great at shooting the basketball. And so it forces the Raptors defense to make a decision. Are we switching this action? Are we going to, try and fight over? What is the deal here? Jacoby and RJ don't communicate this properly. And so RJ goes under this screen. Jacoby, as you see here, just kind of steps up a little bit here to provide RJ the opportunity to go under. But RJ assumes that they're going to switch this action, and Jacoby doesn't switch. Like, Jacoby does not pick up Devin Vassell and follow him. And so that is a blown coverage, and Vassell wide open three. So now Scotty Barnes is back on the floor. It's a 4-point game with 3 minutes into the fourth quarter. And, the Raptors switch this action between Mamu and IQ, and now IQ is the guy guarding Victor Wembanyama. So that forces Scotty Barnes to have to step up here. And Wemby can just attack this because now RJ Barrett on the weak side corner is defending two guys, right? So that puts the Spurs already at an advantageous position. Wemby just drives, gets inside, and now RJ has to split the difference between both Dylan Harper and Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes, very, very good shooter, especially from the corners. RJ late to contest, recover, and Harrison knocks down the shot. Just like later in the game, this is obviously clutch time now. 3:40 left in this game, and I just want to talk about some of the other blown coverages, blown communication here, right? So Champagnie gets downhill, Jakob picks him up, right? And as you see here, Brandon Ingram is guarding Victor Wembanyama, RJ is guarding Dylan Harper, and there's just a complete miscommunication on who is guarding who here. And it's very easy for Wemby to shake to the corner, and this is an easy shot for Victor Wembanyama. RJ and BI just completely blew that coverage, and that ends up being a three, and now the Spurs are up 6. So there were a lot of blown coverages here in that fourth quarter, folks. As we welcome you into the film room, this was a fun game. I don't want to start on a somber note. I think it was a really, really entertaining basketball game against a very, very good Spurs team that was riding a win streak and continues to ride a win streak after picking up this win. This was a game where the Raptors were neck and neck with the Spurs throughout. They played some incredible defense on Victor Wembanyama, who Wemby finished this game with 12 points, 3 of 12 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3. He had a couple of turnovers as well. We'll get into how CMB and Scotty limited Wemby in this game overall and how he really looked affected by the physicality of the Raptors. That's something that I'm very interested in looking forward to for this Spurs team in the playoffs. That being said, I think the Raptors played an excellent game. All throughout, they played a superb game. And in that third quarter, they really broke out into a lead. They forced the Spurs into turnovers. They got out and running. Jamal Shed was knocking down threes. Emmanuel Quickley was knocking down threes. They were really the Raptors basketball, folks, right? Just forcing turnovers, playing with pace, and getting good offense out of that pace. The fourth quarter, that start of the fourth quarter, in my opinion, is what blew it for the Raptors. Obviously there's going to be a lot of conversation about why both Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram were not in the game to start the fourth quarter, especially with Victor Wembanyama being on the floor in that time. The Spurs quickly cut into that lead, quickly took over the game, and now the Raptors were the ones trying to fight back. Darko Rajakovic postgame did mention that Scotty Barnes, who was dealing with a quad contusion and was questionable coming into this, was basically playing on one leg. And so he was trying to afford Scotty a little bit more time to start the fourth quarter because Scotty usually does start the fourth quarter so that he could play the end of the game. Brandon Ingram, meanwhile, does not usually start the fourth quarter and had played an extended period in that third quarter that helped the Raptors get out to a lead. And so you can decide whether that is a fair kind of assessment of the situation, if you will, whether it's fair to blame or not blame, whatever. I'm not here to necessarily point fingers, but I'm here to say that is what blew the game. That moment in time is what lost the Raptors that game. That like 4 or 5 minute stretch where one, they couldn't get stops, and two, they couldn't score the ball without two of their best players, it is the reason that they lost that game. RJ Barrett on defense was getting hunted pretty frequently, especially in that fourth quarter. And it just seems like teams are now realizing there's sort of a spot in which they can poke at on the Raptors defense and say, hey, we're going to put you in actions. We're going to make sure that RJ has to make decisions constantly on defense, whether it's, hey, we're switching off ball, whether it's communicating, if we're putting his guy in actions. And most of the time, RJ is guarding these off-ball shooters who run through tons of screens, like a Devin Vassell, like a Champagnie. And so ultimately, them's the breaks. Like that was what led to the Raptors losing this game. Overall, though, you look at a Raptors team that fought against one of the best teams in the NBA. And I think a big part of that was the fact that their starting center in Jakob played his best game this season. Undoubtedly played his best game of the season. Jakob came off of the bench tonight, played 29 minutes, ended up with 15 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 3 blocks. He was also 5 of 11 from the field. Not necessarily as efficient for your 7-foot starting center. Usually you want him to be a little bit more efficient, but overall, a very, very good game. Given the fact that on the other side of the floor, it was Victor Wembanyama. And oh, by the way, in that fourth quarter, it was Jakob because Colin Murray-Boyles left the game re-injuring his thumb, and it was Jakob who had to take on the primary assignment of guarding Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs went double big with Luke Kornet and Wemby, and I think overall that was just a recipe for disaster for the Raptors because it was second chance opportunities, it was limiting the paint, and as I've mentioned before, when a team is able to wall off the paint, the Raptors don't have too many options and too many solutions that they can go to. Now, for what it's worth, they got a very good mid-range scoring game from Brandon Ingram and from Scotty Barnes. They got another decent three-point shooting night. They were 8 of 23 in this game. The Spurs just shot more threes. They were 17 of 39. Three-point shooting has been a very, very good helper for the Spurs during this win streak. And I think the big difference maker has to be the paint points and has to be the ability to even take shots in the paint. Victor Wembanyama was incredible defensively. As much as the Raptors did their job offensively to limit him, he was incredible on the defensive side of the floor. There was a moment in the game where, De'Aaron Fox was being guarded by Scotty Barnes. Scotty played some excellent defense, ripped the ball out of Fox's hands. The Raptors are out and running. Jakob Poeltl gets it in transition, tries to go under, and just gets swallowed up by Wemby. And that was like one of those sequences where I'm like, wow, that was two Defensive Player of the Year candidates going back and forth with incredible plays in the clutch. It was a fun game, folks. Like, I know the Raptors lost and everything, but that was a very, very entertaining basketball game that makes you say, like, the Raptors are close. We'll get to the kind of overall takeaways, but I want to get into Jakob Poeltl and how good he was for this team on both sides of the floor. All right, 3 blocks and 1 steal for Jakob Poeltl, and I think a lot of that just showed off his improved movement, the fluidity that he has. That back is looking good in terms of him reaching up and contesting these shots. See here, on Fox, sells out on this contest. Great job recovering. Is able to run out and transition as well. I thought this play really showed how fluid Jakob was on defense and how his back was looking. So Luke Cornett actually gets the advantageous position. He already gets behind the defense here. And so I thought Yak did a really great job of recovering, jumping out and contesting. And that's all back, folks. That is a whole back. And then offensively doing what he does as a screener and pick and roll partner. So boom, dribble handoff with RJ Barrett, and he finishes over Wemby. Then here, Brandon Ingram drives, engages the help defense of Wemby, and then a nice dump off pass for Jakob, that nice floater. And he was great on the offensive glass tonight, especially in the clutch, finishing here over Wemby as well. Again, the fluidity to pop out in certain situations, like, just looks athletically a little bit better finishing in these scenarios. And so Jakob was awesome, guys. Jakob was excellent in this game. And man, like, if you can get this version of him, truthfully, the Raptors' ceiling is just different. You know what I mean? The Raptors are just a different team when he is on the floor. And he enables the Raptors to play different types of lineups. I noticed it, and I've noticed it over the last 3 or 4 games now, where the Raptors will run 1 big plus 1 of Scotty or BI, plus 2 shooters and a ball handler, whether that's Jamal Shed or Emmanuel Quickley or RJ Barrett. And that's a very, very good recipe, in my opinion, to figure out what works. The other version of this that they run is when Scotty is off the floor, they run Jakob, BI, RJ, IQ lineups with another shooter on the floor, whether that's Jacoby or Jamison Battle or whoever else. The reason they do that is because, 1, you have 4 starting caliber players on your team that you can put without Scotty. And 2, those 3 guys in BI, RJ, and IQ can be reliant on Jakob as a screener. And so you have a different form, a different function of your offensive scheme that can work really well in those lineups. I just think Jakob provides so much flexibility for this Raptors team, especially because they now know what they have with Colin Murray-Boyles. And hopefully CMB is okay. Obviously he is playing and fighting through that thumb injury that he's dealing with. He seemed like he was in a lot of pain tonight after he got dinged, I believe, midway through the 3rd quarter. He came back and played, but did not close out this game. And he did not return to the game either. Now, ultimately, he was excellent. He was truthfully excellent, and the Raptors started him in this game because they wanted him on Victor Wembanyama. He did an incredible job. Let's talk about CMB on Wemby. Early in this game, really pressuring him on ball. And the great thing about CMB and guys like him defensively is that they've been proven to bother Wemby, right? Smaller guys who are stronger, can match him physically, and not let him get off these shots easily. This time, pick and roll, and he recovers out to Wemby, uses his hands to poke it out, force a turnover. Now ball pressure all the way up the floor, and this time Wemby just throws an ill-advised pass, turnover. This is what I mean by that combination of physicality and being able to contest. Not only is CMB strong enough to play physically with Wemby, but he's tall enough to be able to provide a pretty good contest on these shots too. And yeah, that's the CMB game for y'all. I thought he was really, really good in his minutes. And truthfully, the fact that they didn't have him to finish off this game probably limited their ability defensively. All right, anyways, I want to get into something here. Like the fact that the Raptors were in this game, and I know people are going to be angry at the fact that Darko Rajakovic said, I'm proud of our fight and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, you can kind of argue either way for that. I think overall, there is something brewing with this Raptors team underneath the surface of the fact that this is a bad half-court offense, a really one-track minded clutch offense that force feeds Brandon Ingram. I mean, I could have got into that again tonight, but it just felt like I was being repetitive. Very one-track minded clutch offense that force feeds Brandon Ingram, and it makes it way too obvious what they're trying to achieve in clutch moments. The fact that this team, their bread and butter is transition offense, and yet they don't score that efficiently in transition. The fact that this team is very, very good defensively, and yet against the very good teams, they struggle to defend. I think all of those can be seen as negative things, but I honestly see them as positive things. The fact that they are in these games, the fact that they are top 6 in their conference, the fact that they are punching above these expectations, in spite of some of these very clear flaws of this roster and of this team, shows me that there's something brewing here for the Raptors. Now, obviously, they have to take advantage of this in the offseason and kind of double down on whatever they're good at, which is defense and forcing turnovers. And I think a combination of shooting and size that they can get in spurts and in moments between the Emmanuel Quickleys and Jacoby Walters and Jamison Battles and Jamal Sheds of the world. Like, how do you conjure up a roster that makes the most sense around Scotty Barnes? And I think ultimately you see a vision there. That's why I come back to those lineups that I was mentioning, where it's one big, Scotty, 2 shooters, and a ball handler. And like, that's the vision. That's the future to think about, is like, imagine if this team was Scotty, big man, all-star ball handler, and 2 shooters that really are able to knock down shots and also create a little bit off the bounce. Like, hypothetically here. And I'm not talking about like this is something that's achievable for them, but imagine if it was like Jakob Poeltl, or you know what? Yeah, let's go with this. Imagine if it was like Jakob Poeltl, Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, Trey Murphy, LaMelo Ball. Of course, that is wishful thinking, but I'm just saying, like, that is the blueprint of a very, very good team. And of course there are the flaws of those players that you have to address as well, naturally. But I think that's the world where we're living in, where it's like, this season has proven to me that Scotty Barnes is well worth investing in and well worth building around. Now you know how to build around him. Now you got to go out and get those types of players that enhance that. I think you have some on this roster that make a lot of sense, that do what you're supposed to around a guy like that. You got to keep adding more. That's why this summer is really important for the Toronto Raptors. And also, this season is not over yet, so you're still gaining information about some of these other guys. And when Jakob is playing, like this, you provide yourself more avenues to be able to add to this team. So that's the way moving forward for this Raptors team. And that's why I'm excited for the second half of the season, because they're going to be playing some tough competition. They have a tough schedule, and they will be able to learn from that. Folks, as always, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, tap into Raptors Republic. We appreciate you guys tapping in as always. By the way, shout out to y'all. Some people, I was doing some like video question stuff today, and a lot of people came up to me like, hey, we like the videos. Shout out to you, whatever. Appreciate you guys. Thank you much. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's always awesome to hear that people are tapping into this stuff. Anyways, we'll see you guys. I think they play the Wizards next. Yeah, we'll see you guys for the Wizards soon. Appreciate you as always. That was an awesome game. Enjoy it, folks. Remember the days we were watching Jordan Nwora take shots. Enjoy this. Peace out.